Our tale today begins with anonymity, brilliance, and a tinge of mystery. Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, has managed to stay anonymous to this very day. Like a cipher etched in the digital code of Bitcoin, this persona tantalizes the world's curiosity, offering only scattered clues that lead to a labyrinth of speculation, theories, and unresolved puzzles. Join us on a gripping journey as we delve into the depths of this intrigue, attempting to unravel the riddle of the century, the search for the elusive Satoshi Nakamoto. The following reading is from Terrance Michael's book, Proof of Money. We have a link to where you can buy his book in the description. Bitcoin's lack of any entity or person is what money has needed all these years. It was the missing piece that could finally make money fair, because to have truly decentralized money requires that no one be in charge. There can't be a singular voice, a hierarchy, or even a location. It seems almost mystical, like a fairy tale or sci-fi movie, that someone could remain anonymous for years, build a new monetary system that solves problems that mathematicians, scientists, and engineers said were unsolvable, and then make the final necessary sacrifice and vanish. This person invented money and the piping for that money to flow to everyone in the world, taking no credit, compensation, adulation, or notoriety. Satoshi Nakamoto might represent one person, or it might be a group of people. In a move almost as brilliant as creating Bitcoin itself, Satoshi managed to keep his identity from the entire world, including the NSA and CIA, who have attempted to figure the mystery out and offer rewards if anyone could. Similar to other monumental inventions, Bitcoin didn't just pop up overnight. Hundreds of cypherpunks, coders, engineers, and software developers have attempted to fix and improve electronic money for decades. In some ways, Bitcoin is simply an amalgamation of all the breakthroughs that came before it. Once you dig into Bitcoin and how it works, you see why Satoshi's non-existence was inevitable. It was always part of the plan, although, as you'll see below, that plan may have been accelerated due to illness. Mark Andreessen, owner of the largest VC firm A16Z and famous for startups like Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and hundreds more, wanted to invent something like Bitcoin. Instead, Mark invented Netscape, which was the first internet browser to allow credit cards. Mark is a serial entrepreneur who files patents, creates companies, and is a figurehead for everything he does. This would have never worked for Bitcoin. It required someone with no ego or showmanship. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel also wanted to invent peer-to-peer digital money. But Elon and Peter couldn't figure out several issues. How do you secure the payment network and make it impenetrable to counterfeiters? How do you solve the slow settlement issues with banks? Instead, they created PayPal and transferred the US dollar back and forth on traditional bank rails. PayPal became a centralized digital bank. Like Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel have prominent public personas that sway markets. Money can't work with that level of influence. Before Bitcoin, numerous protocols came close to solving digital money. None of them could reach full purity for all the properties money needs to have, especially decentralization, scarcity, and security from government or bad actors. In the 1980s, computer scientist and cryptographer David Chong proposed an electronic cash system. His project eventually became eCash, probably the first form of digital cash we've ever had, and for that, he is considered the godfather and creator of cryptocurrency. Dr. Adam Back developed Hashcash by inventing a proof-of-work system. He attempted to eliminate spam emails by making senders prove who they were via micropayments. He's mentioned in Satoshi's original white paper and was the second person to receive an email from Satoshi. Later, Wei Dai's B-Money and Nick Szabo's BitGold took these protocols a step further to combat inflation with digital scarcity and distribute across a global ledger. BitGold eliminated the middleman and made it decentralized. PayPal couldn't figure out this aspect and how money could be in the hands of all the people rather than a trusted authority to manage the ledger. Decentralization was a critical step in having actual peer-to-peer money, not peer-to-company to government to company-to-peer money. It is partially why names like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk could never create Bitcoin. They want control. They make themselves the stars rather than the protocol, and their products and services are directly related to their personalities and decisions. There is speculation that Nick Szabo is Satoshi, or one of a group making up Satoshi. Satoshi's message on the chat forums to other cryptographers was that he would use his initials for his first Bitcoin transaction. The first Bitcoin sent was signed with NS, as in Nick Szabo, but it should be noted that in Asian countries, initials are reversed, so NS could equally stand for Satoshi Nakamoto. On the other hand, there's no indication anywhere that Satoshi was Japanese based on his activity. It's believed Satoshi was, at times in Northern California and at times in Europe, judging from timestamps and hours of the day on his email activity, Twitter posts, online chat forums, and cypherpunk groups. It's also believed Satoshi worked partially as a postdoctorate or in some form of academia because of specific phrasing and formatting of his writings. He outlined the entire Bitcoin protocol with English phrasing like bloody hard and spelling the color gray the English way with letters G-R-E-Y. Satoshi's first message on the Bitcoin blockchain referenced a story in The Times, an English newspaper. It read, January 29th, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. This was a reference to fiat's never-ending money printing and its devaluation of its citizens. Bitcoin's origination was a peaceful protest against the banking bailouts from the global financial crisis in America in 2008. It was in response to the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers and the bailout of Merrill Lynch, but stamped in the blockchain is a reference to an English newspaper. Nick Szabo is American, however Dr. Adam Back is English. Could Satoshi have been a combination of the two? Both men adamantly deny that they are Satoshi, yet they are on many people's short list of top 5 contenders. Then there's Hal Finney, another American computer scientist. Hal was a prominent cryptographer who was involved early on in the community. He received the very first email from Satoshi and helped test and troubleshoot what has now become Bitcoin. A couple of months after Satoshi released the white paper, he sent the first 10 Bitcoin to Hal Finney. If I were testing out a new email program, I'd probably send myself an email from one address to another. But analysts think it would be crazy and too time-consuming for Hal Finney to email himself for as long as Satoshi and Hal communicated online. Then there's the oddity of Hal's neighbor, a Japanese man named Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto. Maybe Hal used his neighbor's name as a pseudonym, or since Hal and the real Satoshi communicated so much, perhaps the real Satoshi learned of Hal's neighbor's name and adopted it. The neighbor named Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto has denied he is Satoshi, and based on his background and work, no one questions it. Unfortunately, Hal died in 2014 from complications of ALS. As tragic as that is, who better to keep a secret than someone dead? Finally, Len Sassaman is a well-respected cryptographer, less known than everyone above. Len worked with and was instrumental in many cryptographic protocols like BitTorrent and key encryption, the basis of Bitcoin. He also was on the Internet Task Force for the Internet's TCP/IP layer, another Bitcoin similarity. Len lived in Northern California, but he also worked in academia in Belgium and research under David Chong, the godfather of cryptocurrency. Here's why that's important. Many of Len's posts and tweets show that he specifically used the phrase bloody hard when complaining about phone service, and he talked about his grey beard with the G-R-E-Y spelling. Those occurrences explain why, even though people think Satoshi is English, it could be Len, who fits all of the other criteria. The timestamps of Len's activity correlate directly with his time in San Francisco and later when he was in Belgium. Satoshi's last message was posted in December 2010 and existed online until April 2011. He wrote, There's more work to be done, but that Bitcoin is in good hands. Len had severe depression, but also a lifelong neurological disorder, just like Hal Finney. Sadly, and in a shocking move, Len took his own life at age 31 on July 3, 2011. Hal died 3 years later. Satoshi's final communication with other cryptographers was that he moved on to other things, and that he won't be around much longer. It's possible, and my guess that Satoshi Nakamoto is both Len and Hal. Both men worked together on remailers, a private communication protocol that uses pseudonymous names. I could imagine both guys adopting Hal's neighbor's name and developing Bitcoin under it. If my hunch is correct, aside from the sad loss of these two men, they have given the world one of the most important gifts ever: the separation of money and state. And with that as the goal, Satoshi's disappearance was built in. It was planned. Not that suicide was planned, but leaving Bitcoin so the world could accept it was imperative. Satoshi is credited with inventing Bitcoin, but really, he was the first person to implement and synthesize all these prior protocols and inventions from other cryptographers together in a way that made Bitcoin work. Henry Ford didn't invent tires, he didn't invent the transmission or the internal combustion engine, but Ford knew by combining these breakthroughs, he could create the automobile for which he is credited as the inventor. Satoshi knew how important it was to keep money perfect and uncontaminated. He didn't want anyone, including himself, to have an unfair advantage over the most perfect money ever created. And for that reason, I suspect he threw away the keys to his Bitcoin stash of 1 million Bitcoin. If Satoshi were to have access to this Bitcoin, he would be ridiculously rich. At one point, he was the 12th richest person in the world, and in the future he'll be the world's richest person. Either way, dead or alive, it makes no difference since Satoshi can no longer affect Bitcoin more than anyone else. The protocol was released and is now owned by the people, not him. Just as he wanted it, Satoshi made Bitcoin simple, lean, and slow enough to accommodate any financial activity built on top of it. He designed it to be the only protocol sufficient to secure the world's wealth. This way, no new decisions need to be made. Bitcoin doesn't need any upgrades, improvements, seed rounds of funding, buyouts, mergers, or any mechanics we are accustomed to from companies run by boardrooms and investors. There are volunteer engineers and coders, some of whom work with Satoshi, who continue to stress test Bitcoin and work on technical aspects to improve parts of Bitcoin. But all these suggestions must be approved by everyone, nodes, including you and me. Even the multi-billion-dollar mega corporation with political influence has no more powerful vote than yours. Now, before we exit this video, we want to connect this channel with our audience. What's your favorite article, book, or podcast that energized you on the topic of Bitcoin? Comment below if you'd like us to break it down into a film like this. If you're looking to watch another, try this one here. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more.